Welcome to Sharing with Susan B. Hi, I'm Susan Blaine and welcome to Sharing with Susan B. Very excited to do this special 3-part series. Those of you that maybe aren't familiar with Sharing with Susan B, it's a series around vulnerability and the power of vulnerability. And I know that's not always easy for people to talk about. And this is the first season of Sharing with Susan B. I had 60 episodes of powerful conversation with 60 different guests and from diverse backgrounds, and doing what they love and being brave enough to talk about their struggle. And I was so inspired, it changed my life doing that series. And if you're looking for some inspiration, check it out, Sharing with Susan B on YouTube. Today, we're doing a very special 3-part series on redefining loss. I'm here with my good friend, Don Lachance, who is a grief and loss specialist, plus an entrepreneur. We met 2 years ago when I was filming my first series, and he was my first guest, number 1 out of 60. And we just met then, and we've been friends ever since. I've learned a great deal from Don's wisdom, and I'm so glad that we're doing this series together. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Susan.
And we've been talking about doing this for a long time, and we finally got around to it. And we have a lot of great conversation, and we knew that if we captured it, we're hoping that it helps a lot of people that are watching. And if you want to know Don's story, check out the first series, Sharing with Susan B. It's a 10-minute segment. He talks about his why, and it's a very powerful story. So check him out. So redefining loss. Here we go, Don. Let's get right into it.
Redefining loss.
Yeah, I guess, what does that mean?
How do we define loss before we get to redefine it?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Well, it means a lot of people think sort of the default loss. I've lost somebody to a death.
Yeah, there's that aspect of it, and I think it's one of the most difficult things for people who turn to any of the loss and grief specialists. They come to us usually as the result of something severe, something drastic, something dramatic that's happened, and they know they're experiencing grief because just the sensation, just the emotions that surface.
It almost cripples their life, right?
Well,
it takes over.
It does.
Yeah.
And it stops them dead in their tracks. And it's why they end up reaching out for help, because they don't know what else to do.
So that's sort of the common definition, or something that you would recognize right away.
Yeah. We identify grief with having lost somebody that we care about greatly. Mm-hmm. And the thing that really kind of surprises people is when they come to us and we let them know that there is such a thing as intangible loss.
Yes.
And, that begs the question, what do you mean intangible loss? And those are things where when we lose self-worth, when we lose value, when we lose innocence, when we lose dignity.
Yeah. Ooh.
And the same emotional turmoil surfaces, and so we experience all of that discomfort, and we don't know what to do with it, because how do we look for help? How do we fix something we don't really understand is broken?
Right, and we're not recognizing it.
No.
We're just feeling what we're feeling, but we're not identifying it to something specific, because that's where it starts, right? Is being able to do that.
Absolutely, being able to just understand that emotional angst is there for a very specific reason.
To teach us something?
Well, always. There's lessons in everything if we sit quietly and listen for them. That's the difficult part, because we've been cruelly conditioned by the world not to feel. So when we do experience any of those losses, when we do experience any of those feelings, we want to turn to everything that we're comfortable doing.
Everything else. Distraction.
Everything else or anything
else. Yeah. So true. And there's so many things, right? Food, alcohol, drugs. What's specifically rampant right now is a lot of emotion around loss in these times, right?
Tons of it. And people are, in most instances, completely unaware of what they're experiencing in the way of loss, that they're grieving deeply.
Yeah.
They really are. But they're confused because, well, I shouldn't say nobody's experienced death. There's a lot of people who have lost loved ones.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Throughout this whole period, you know, with what's unfolding in the world right now with COVID.
Yeah.
But we look at the dynamics of what's unfolded on so many other fronts. There's the loss, and I'm not diminishing the loss of people that we care about.
Oh gosh, no.
Like, that's one thing. But people who have lost jobs, people who have lost their homes, people who have lost
their dignity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, that's a killer, right?
Right. Yeah.
It really is. And what do we do?
And there's shame and guilt. There's so much that gets thrown into the muck that we're stuck in, right?
Yeah.
There's so much that gets piled on us.
And here's the hard part, Susan. Like, we're comfortable in that muck.
Are we now?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Well, because we're not feeling.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I've learned how to feel, Don.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I've been with you on your journey. And
yes, you have.
Yeah, it's been.
But it's hard,
great.
man.
Of course it is.
It's hard. That's why people don't want to do it.
Well, it's because, like, the way we've been conditioned.
Yeah.
We've been taught how to dodge. And, you know, I've got, like, years of alcohol and drug addiction recovery under my belt as well. And I'd hear things about program where, like, you know, the disease was cunning and baffling. And the more I move through this, you know, I used to think back then, what the heck does that mean? Like, a disease is cunning and baffling. and I began to realize the more I move through this work that it's our subconscious that's cunning and baffling. And nobody lies to us better than we lie to ourselves.
Oh, yes, yes.
And we're willing partners in crime when it comes to that, like, because it keeps us in that place of denial and uncomfortable comfort, if I can say it that way, because we're accustomed to it. That's why I say often we're comfortable in that muck and the mire, because we're not processing, we're not experiencing the actual emotion, we're not sitting with that. You know, we're not. We find all kinds of ways to dodge it. And, you know, the cunning and baffling element on that front is some of the things that we implement to not feel.
Yes.
And very, very skilled.
Such as, give some examples. I know people that are watching understand what we're talking about.
Well, it'll surface for different people in different ways, right? For me, it was alcohol. For me, it was drugs. Pornography became another big escape mechanism that, like, you know, creating fantasy worlds.
Yes.
The gaming communities, like,
oh man, yeah.
you know, and here's the cunning and baffling element too, truly, to show you. Some people will take up incredibly disciplined gym regimens and take up running. And although, like, you know, you look at that and you think, wow, those are really healthy things to be doing, right?
And good for them.
Yeah. You're really, you're doing good, but you're doing it for all the wrong reasons. You're doing it to not feel what you're actually experiencing.
Yes.
And so it becomes a hiding place.
A lot of people are very busy.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's one of the myths, right?
Yeah.
Keep busy.
Yeah.
You know, it sits
I know
right
quite
up there.
a few people. And you know what? I often feel sometimes triggered by that I should be also keeping myself busy, doing what they're doing, because they seem to be having some success, but not necessarily emotionally. I mean, we can't see what's going on inside. People don't show us that. I don't show everybody all of that. I mean, sometimes when I'm not at my best, the best thing that I can do is withdraw. I don't want to engage other people. I don't want to project my, you know, I want to save the good stuff for people so I can help people rise and not necessarily.
Yeah, that's unfortunately one of the conundrums, right? That comes with.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, that comes with this territory, really. You know, when we set out to intentionally help some people, we're not doing them a service. It's when we intentionally set out to help people
Yeah.
that we often aren't able to, because like that's agenda driven.
Yeah.
And it's when we show up authentically. It's when we're doing our own work. It's when we show up as the examples. It's when we show up as that authentic safe space.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
we're not looking to push an agenda out. We're not looking to coax. We're not looking to,
Heal somebody.
Yeah.
We're not looking to
Yeah.
teach somebody,
yeah,
right? To fix somebody.
yeah, show up. Talk
Yeah,
about
just
your
show up.
bobos. Talk
Yeah.
about the things that
Talk
hurt
about your
you.
struggle.
Yeah, absolutely.
The power of vulnerability.
Well, that was the thing that like really, really kind of sold me on what you were looking to do when you took on this project.
Yeah.
You know, something I'd been following for the longest time and working at trying to step into, and your series really brought that to life because there's so many amazing people showed up for that and talked about their struggles. And,
They really did.
you know,
They showed up. At first, it's funny because at first it was an exercise for me to build a brand. And then it became a social experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just became this beautiful thing that unfolded, not just for me, sitting down and having 60 conversations. I actually had 105
yeah,
to find the 60, but also the experience for them in sharing, because many of them, like you and I, didn't know each other
mm-hmm.
before. And just having those kind of conversations wasn't their norm.
yeah. And you get to know people at such different levels
Yeah.
when that begins to unfold. Like I look at some of the relationships that have surfaced as a result of that, like, you know, just some of the exchanges and banter like I've got going on with people like Steve Cody and like the new projects that he's working on right
He's
now.
awesome. Yeah.
You know, I met AC Tran like as a result of that, really, you know, and today I got to meet him live, you know,
Because he's
how
behind
cool
the
is that?
camera.
Yeah. How cool is that? Like, you know, it's just that kind of thing. So it's inspiring, and
Well, it's
and I watch
connected.
how all that-
That's the power of it, right? It's the power of sharing that connects us. The power of vulnerability. Dare to be vulnerable. It has this healing, magical component to it. I'm so grateful. The t-shirt I wore today is "Gratitude is Magical." And I feel that about this work and continuing to do the work, encouraging people to step into their story, share their struggles with others. It can help save a life.
Yeah, I love that word,
Magic.
gratitude.
Oh,
Well, magical is nice, but gratitude, you know, that really kind of incites the magic.
yeah.
And, you know, it brings me back to reading a quote that my wife posted on her Facebook timeline on New Year's Eve and a couple of years back. And I didn't read it right away. It was late when I read it. And so the quote was, "What would you have in your life right now? Or what if you only had what you had thanked God for yesterday?"
Okay.
And it really kind of got me thinking, because I'm not always a grateful person. You know, I get lost in that. I'm busy, like,
Yeah.
right? I want to get out. I want to instigate. I want to uncover.
You
I
want to do.
Yeah, I want
Yeah.
to do. And I figured, okay, I'm going to do something. And I started a little journal, and I wrote that quote at the top of the book. And I decided for like a year, I was going to list 5 things that I was grateful for every day.
Nice.
And I was loyal to that
For how long?
for a year. I did it
Nice.
for 365 days.
Nice.
That book traveled with me, and it didn't matter. It was the first thing I did when I woke up in the morning.
Nice.
Was like I sat quiet for a minute and I just really thought about the things I was grateful for. I sat in that emotional space.
What a great way to start the day.
Absolutely.
You know, I do that
Absolutely.
too. I've learned, I built my toolbox,
Mm.
you know, just coming back to this loss thing, because I know you do a lot of work and work with people who are processing and working through their grief and their loss. And you yourself recently had a personal loss that you have been working through.
Yeah, I lost my son to heart failure July 26th. He died in his sleep. And for those in the audience who don't know, part of that story is in my profile. I had a baby with my girlfriend at the age of 17, and I was like in the throes of alcoholism and drug addiction. I was already full-blown alcoholic, and there was no way we could keep the baby. It just wasn't feasible, right? And so, both coming from Catholic schools and Catholic backgrounds, like the nuns were involved, and like everything got taken care of, and it was all just like the way it was going to be. And
then you found each other again.
He found me on Facebook.
Wow.
Like 12 years ago. And here's part of the turmoil for me. We never really got to meet face to face.
Because he was in Texas.
Well, he was in Texas, yeah. He ended up, his mom, they lived just in another neighborhood.
Growing up.
Yeah, growing up for a good part, I think till he was 6 or 7. And then his mom remarried, and they ended up moving to Texas with the new husband. And so he'd been there ever since. But
through Facebook, you reconnected.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, and that was phenomenal, right? I remember the emotional roller coaster I was on when that happened. And I remember saying to him, look, give me 24 hours to just kind of absorb everything that's unfolding in me right now.
Because it had been how many years?
It's been a long time. A long time.
50 years?
Yeah, well, he was 50 when he died, and he found me 12 years ago, so I'm not good at math. You can
38.
do those numbers. Yeah, so he would have been 38.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got another grandchild as a result of that.
Yeah.
And with that, like even equipped with all the knowledge and everything I've got in the way of dealing with loss, like I've still got to go through the entire process.
You're
myself,
still human,
right? Absolutely.
It's a human thing, man.
Absolutely, is it ever? And just a really sobering reminder, like that nobody escapes the pain and the depth of what we really do experience when it comes to loss.
And even when you survive one, another one may come. And they come in different forms, right? You could lose your job. You could lose a relationship. You could lose everything, from one day to the next. Certainly in this time that we're living in, it's uncertain. We also feel a loss of security, safety, comfort.
More intangible losses.
Yeah,
right
more
there,
intangible losses, but they're very real, and they're having an emotional impact on our world. I see it in everyone around us. I can feel it out there when I'm even, at the grocery store or in traffic, and you can just feel this intensity that there is out there. We're doing a 3-part series, so we're going to wrap up this first segment here in a minute, but I thought that it would be helpful for those that are watching and listening to us. Don and I have been sharing a little bit from our own personal stuff, maybe to share with people with all your experience, Don, and I know you do one-on-one work, but something that we can do for ourselves if we are in this grieving process or we've lost something, let's say an intangible loss of some sort. What can we do to help ourselves heal? Because a lot of us are doing it yourself. There's not a lot out there as there used to be available. The system is stretched thin for support and therapy and things like that. But, are there some things that we can do to kind of help ourselves? I love your gratitude exercise. That's something, isn't it?
Yeah, like that. Yeah, that's a hands-on thing you can do, and it brings you closer to some of the things you can be thankful for.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you need to be aware that it can easily become a stir and keep you from the things that you're truly suffering. Yeah, suffering deeply from, right?
Yeah.
So I think one of the biggest things is for people, and some may be just hearing for the first time that there's such a thing as intangible loss, and some of the emotional discomfort that they're experiencing is tied to that and not necessarily the death of somebody. And if you recognize that and you're feeling that discomfort, reach out. because there are more and more people who are sensitized to what's really unfolding. And if they are unable to help, there's a lot more people being equipped and armed with the knowledge and the ability to point you in the right direction and connect you to people who can help.
Yes.
So, it's one
Reaching
of the things.
out to anyone. I mean, I see people reaching out on social media, some people that are isolated and alone. And it's amazing how many people step up into connections. Just from my own personal story and the trauma that I have lived through in the last couple of years, I have made connections online with people that I didn't know before and who have just had compassion and made me feel less alone. The support means a lot, and it really helps. We're going to continue this conversation, so stay with us for the next episode of our conversation around redefining loss. We invite you to join in on the conversation too. We would love to hear from those of you that are watching by leaving a comment or sending a message through the platform that you're viewing this on or hearing it on. This podcast, just leave us a comment or reach out to us through our social media platforms, which we'll leave in the link. This is a human thing.
If I can add to that,
sure,
too, because often people won't want to leave a comment because that's public, just public visibility, and very uncomfortable with that. So reach out to you or to me in private message.
Sure.
Absolutely. And understand that anything you reach out about or with will be held with the strictest of confidence, 100% confidentiality. We're not here to analyze, criticize, or judge. We're simply here to hold safe space. And, we work at showing up authentically to create that space so people feel comfortable enough to take their masks off, and some connect for the very first time ever. So, if you need to do that privately, do it by all means, but do it.
Yes, please connect with us. Be sure to check out all 3 episodes as they unfold here, and let us know how this conversation connects with you. We would love to hear from you. And thank you for joining us for this episode, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Blake.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah.